What's going on, people? How you doing? It's a new episode of Altcoins Anonymous. I'm so glad you guys could be here today with me. Happy Friday, bitches. How you doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Probably at the North American Bitcoin Conference if you're one of the cool kids, or if you're like me, you're not. I really wish I got tickets to that. I saw tickets. They're at like $2,500 right now. Goddamn, man. I almost bought it. So, I was really going to go. I was really considering going, and then everybody asked if they were going. They said, no, we're not going. And I realized now that I should have just went anyway. There's so many people to meet at all these different conferences. It definitely is a fun experience to be a part of. Regardless, I'm definitely more of a skeptic when it comes to the cryptocurrency, but regardless of what you believe in cryptocurrency, it's probably a really good networking experience for one, but for two, just to understand, just take a reading on what type of people are interested in this nonsense. Because it's a lot more people than you would realize. It's not like Joe Schmo who wears tinfoil around his head and doesn't have a Facebook address or something. It's normal people are curious about Bitcoin. So it's very interesting to see all those random people just show up at a spot. But I guess it's always been like this. I've never really experienced, a Bitcoin meetup until recently. So I don't really even know where I'm judging my opinion off of, except chat rooms basically. But I would assume that's the real community, the people that kind of participate in the chat rooms, or at least not even necessarily participate, but at least are witnessing the chat rooms. Those are the people who are understanding, or not necessarily chat rooms, but forums or any type of digital online media. Those are the people that are really the backbone of the community. And then you have the people who come once in a while to these events who just want to understand. And you realize that they're real people, real families, real jobs, and they're also very interesting individuals, and they don't really understand what blockchain is, but they know that it might be useful. The price is going up, so, let's come to a meetup and find out what the big deal is. So, I definitely am going to try to do it next year, especially if tickets are only $500. It's nothing. It's a fucking great value, in my opinion. There's so much content that you get from going to these things. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm very receptive to this stuff, or maybe I'm actually usually kind of the opposite. I'm not very receptive to a lot of these things. I'm usually pretty skeptical. But there's a lot of stuff to contemplate by putting yourself in that atmosphere, or environment. So I definitely recommend it for anyone, specifically myself next year. Hopefully I'll be going. But anyway, I want to just say, first of all, thank you to Theo Goodman. Did I call you Theo Vaughn? I may have called you Theo Vaughn on the show. I really hope I didn't do that, but I was watching a bunch of other podcasts recently of Theo Vaughn. He's a comedian, so if I said Theo Vaughn by accident, I'm really sorry if I did that. But Theo Goodman of the Rare.af Foundation, I hope I didn't call you Theo Vaughn. He's a comedian. Anyway, really funny dude, though. Check him out. But Theo Goodman, I really thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm not exactly sure why you did that, but I hope you come on again at some point, too. And maybe we'll talk about something else that's not so controversial, at least to my perspective, because I really enjoyed having you on. I like talking to you, and I know you have a lot of information that I'll learn from. So that's really what these experiences are. And I might have very drastic ideas or very very distinct opinions. But it's really because these are questions that I haven't seen answered yet in the Bitcoin community. And it seems like a lot of times, I'm starting to realize what a Bitcoin maximalist is. I always thought it was oh, you just like Bitcoin a lot. But now I'm starting to, I don't want to attribute this to you or anyone else for that matter. But people, I feel do take for granted Bitcoin's value opposed to other cryptocurrencies. And I'm not saying that, Bitcoin isn't the best one. But I do feel there is some room for debate of whether or not maybe Bitcoin is the test net. Maybe we haven't hit the real Bitcoin yet. I know that's kind of doesn't make any sense. We've been using Bitcoin for 9 years. It's also clearly there's price support within the darknet markets, etc. It has, transactional value, but maybe that's the test net. Maybe it's not Litecoin. Maybe it's not Monero. Maybe it's the entire cryptosphere is the testnet, and we're just not there yet. That's kind of how I interpret a lot of this information. So I don't think people will agree with me on that too. They'll think I'm just trying to create an avenue for someone else to get rich quick or something like that. But I do feel that Bitcoin community is very difficult to interact with because people are usually very set in their ways. And as you can see right now, like we have Bitcoin Cash, we have Bitcoin, we have Litecoin, we have all these different things. The community never really agrees on what they want to do. Everybody has their interpretation about what's right, what's wrong. So would there be, and I mean, maybe this is the most ultimate or most drastic viewpoint, but would there be some type of consensus where everybody goes, hey, maybe this is what we should be doing. We should put all of our research development into this, and maybe even get some governments to back an open source project that maybe they'd be like, hey, look, maybe we really can't regulate money, but at least we'll provide like a safe atmosphere, or like at least an atmosphere that will let a project like this, an open source project, flourish in a very natural way that would respond to the community and the needs of humanity. I don't know if that's something that will ever happen, but it would be nice to see if like an open source project could get support from the government and the government not interact or interfere with the development or the use case or the utility of that project. It seems almost contradictory, but I mean, we do see other things like that, like, you know, like a methadone clinic offers needles for, ex-heroin addicts or whatever. Maybe in much the same sense that the government will be offering alternative money sources for people who don't want to be, have their identity traced. I don't know if that's really a one-to-one argument or whatever, but I feel like there is a lot of room for development here. Not really what I wanted to segue into from Theo's, my little tip of the hat to Theo. Once again, I don't really know why you agreed to come on my show. Except, you know what? Let me backtrack a little bit more. I should blame Dante for this, because Dante said he was going to be on the show with me. We were up the night beforehand to like 2 or 3 in the morning talking about what I spoke to Theo and Jason about. And then I ended up getting like the fucking target on my head, which I don't mind. Actually, I enjoy that. But, I was talking about all this stuff with Dante the night beforehand, and then it just seems like I'm the asshole that's trying to give fucking Pepe and Counterparty a hard time. And it's like, no, I wasn't the only person that had these concerns. I actually had, spoke at length, like a lengthy discussion with like Dante. Like I learned a lot about Counterparty from Dante. I learned a lot about Bitcoin from Dante. I've learned a lot about the Bitcoin community in general from Dante. So this episode itself is going to be a little bit of a thank you to a lot of the people that I've been dealing with, especially with the Bitcoin community and Pepe and Counterparty and Archetype. But also, I guess I have to kind of like make a statement a little bit, because I'm starting to get a little heat in these channels again, and like I'm going to embrace the heat. I just don't want people to get mad. And if they're going to get mad, then I'll just remove myself. That's fine. I don't need to. I feel like people are starting to get to the point where they want me to leave, and I think that's funny. But we'll backtrack. We'll get into that again. Anyway, so Theo, thank you. Dante, you screwed me, but thank you. Not really, though. That content was a lot of fun. Jason, once again, don't know why the hell you were on there, aside the fact that I name dropped Dante and Theo, and possibly I name dropped a few people. I was hoping to get a few people on that show. I asked Dan if he would come on. Dan had some other stuff, he couldn't deal with it at the time. I asked Sean if he would come on. Sean from Juncess World, he wasn't really interested. And Dante, who had some other shit going on too. And I asked John Carvalho, just because I figured it'd be better if I wasn't, it'd be better if I was asking questions and people were telling me how I'm wrong. Because that's usually how these things work, and I'm very much embracing that. But yeah, Jason, I don't know really understand why you came on, but once again, I hope you do come on again. It was a lot of fun talking to you. I learned a lot, and I hope other people learned stuff from the content too, if they did listen to the show. Yeah, it really meant a lot to me that you guys would take me seriously and even grant me the opportunity to talk to me. But that I don't want that to interfere with my perception on what I see going on. And I still think you guys are right. I'm just sorry, I'm burping right now. Excuse me. Had a Monster Energy drink. Excuse me. I don't want my skepticism to seem like I'm trying to shit on these projects. I just, in the eyes of the court, and I am not a lawyer, so I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, which is why I wanted someone like Jason to come on the show and just speak about it. But I don't know, these terms aren't defined. So virtual currency isn't defined. Cryptocurrency isn't even a term, I don't think. I think cryptocurrency is a subset of virtual currency. And now there is a recent post by the SEC and what was it? Whatever. It's like a joint statement I saw from Bitfinex, and I thought it was interesting. And, Bitfinex is kind of the spreader of FUD, too, a little bit. Like, he's the FUD guy. But I've been following him for a bit, and it seems to be that he's, like, fucking spot on about everything. He's just a couple weeks ahead of everybody. So, he released a statement saying that, or he forwarded a statement on his Twitter from the SEC that basically digital instruments, not virtual currencies, digital instruments are something that the SEC is looking into. We're going to make sure that people aren't scamming one another. And for me, that was like a red flag because virtual currencies already isn't defined, and virtual currencies is a term within digital instruments. Another term within digital instruments is tokenized, or is just tokens. So it's not even currency, it's just a token. So I'm wondering if all of these, broad understandings of these terms, is that going to be the fucking, the fall of these little side projects that are starting with, counterparty Ethereum, these digital verified assets? Like, are they going to be put into this broader spectrum of just digital instruments? And my argument is not for Pepe and Archetype. Like, I actually kind of side with the SEC here. I think that if you really want to call these things art, don't fucking put them on the Ethereum blockchain. Like, they don't need to be there. You can put it into a fucking SQL database. You can do it without, using a $1,000 token or a $14,000 or $18,000 token in order to establish the value of a piece of shit GIF on the internet. Like, it's not, there's like, I get, like, it's a joke and we're all just collectors. We're collecting Rare Pepe because we love collecting. We're putting our Rare Pepes in our collection of collecting things. We're collectors. We collect Bitcoin, we collect Litecoin, we collect Monero, we collect Rare Pepes, we collect archetypes. We're collectors of collecting. We're collections. I get that argument, but fuck that. Like, I don't think that's really gonna fucking stand up. Like, I'm sorry. I don't think it's gonna stand up. I think when you go, hey, Dan of bitcorns.com, you made a game on the blockchain where people send you Bitcoin or XCP in exchange for a crop, where that crop now just creates Bitcorns. And those corns are technically digital tradable assets, but they themselves don't have value because you're now playing a video game when you play our game. And that's only because we said it's a video game. So technically, if we didn't say if it was a video game, those Bitcoins could hold value. But we didn't say that they did, so they don't. I don't know if that shit's gonna slide. But I don't, like, maybe, like, I don't, I get it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, and, like, fuck, I wish I thought of Bitcoins. But this isn't coming from a spot of jealousy. Like, it's, like, I haven't even downloaded the Counterparty fucking client. Like, I'm still looking at, like, do I want to get involved in this shit? Why is Counterparty $50 fucking when fucking Bitcoin just fucking is 50% off? There's probably a reason for that. And aside from the fork, which probably won't happen at this point, I don't think. Maybe it will. I think you will see, this is aside from the fork, I think we are going to see Counterparty on every digital asset. But I don't think they're going to fork the same way that Bitcoin Cash did, which multiplied everybody's value. So, like, you'll just have a new blockchain in each one. If they do the fork bullshit that, like, I think was being speculated, I don't think people, like, maybe it'll work for Bitcoin Cash, but I don't think most people will care about it. I think trading digital assets tied to a blockchain without running your own proof of work algorithm or running your own proof of work, like, kind of makes sense. I'm starting to, like, really adopt that idea. Like, there's other things you can do with that. But like I said, it seems like it's for it's for things that you want to be able to trade on a market. So, like, you're issuing value. So, like, I don't know if you want to get in that business of developing counterparty assets, because essentially you're trying to create value or establish a value. You're issuing a point of necessity for someone else. I like, these are all very abstract terms. It's a very abstract way of understanding it. And, like, really, like, at the end of the conversation I had with Jason and Theo, I would have said, and even up until maybe this morning, I think I just agreed with them. Like, I was just like, all right, fine, I guess I can make fucking art video games on the blockchain and it doesn't count anymore. But then you have the SEC release a statement like they did today where it's like, why would they release that like a week after the fucking Rare as Fuck art festival, which happened in New York City? Where it says, look hey man, we're going to be paying attention to your bullshit scams. We don't care if you're calling them cryptocurrencies or not. We're going to look into it. So like, hey, like, is CryptoKitties a scam? Is like Archetype a scam? They just raised $100,000 for selling a fucking piece, like a picture of Homer that literally there's no copyright on there. Like, I mean, I guess like, I don't know, man. If you want to argue that that's a copyrightable image, I wonder if it can be argued that that's still a currency then, because I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. These are all laws and things I just don't understand about. Jason was the closest thing I can get to it, and I'm not going to say that I think he's wrong. I don't think he's wrong. But at the same time, I feel like everybody's kind of blind to the fact that, like, hey, look they're literally saying we're not going to, we're going to broaden our scope of what a digital currency could possibly be. We're not going to call them cryptocurrencies. We're not even going to call them virtual currencies anymore. We're going to call them digital instruments, which has nothing to fucking do with finance. How about that? You happy now, guys? Is your digital instrument a scam? We're going to find out. Am I looking too deeply into it? Possibly. Like, I kind of wanted to give this up. And, like, the only reason why this episode just, like, happened right now is because I went into the Bitcoin chat, and I'm like, yo, maybe you don't want to release this just yet. And I meant it kind of jokingly. Like, you know, I get that I'm the negative part of this balance. And maybe it's unnecessary. But I didn't mean it like, hey, stop everything you're doing. The SEC is going to come bust you. I meant it like, hey, this is interesting. And maybe it's the combination of Bitcoin's price dropped about 50%. Maybe it's that too. I don't know. But I got some negativity in the Bitcoin's channel, and if I'm really getting upset, guys, like, I'll leave. I'm not trying to piss people off, but I do think that the scope is getting broadened, and I think that the scope there's no governing body that's going to defend cryptocurrencies. No one's going to be like, hey, man, these guys are actually doing a lot of good for the world right now, so you need to think about that. You need to think about regulating these guys, because if you do, it's really going to be detrimental to the world. Like, we already know that that's not the case, that this shit's used for fucking the worst possible things you can do with, like, humanity. So, like, there's no defense system for that. They're going to want to make it as broad as possible. And if you're raising money for a bullshit fucking game that you don't need to put on an XCP, like, I feel like that could possibly get blended into there. I don't know, though. I mean, like, I don't know. But I do think the wealth transfer for digital tokenized assets is a very gray area. And I would say it's a darker shade of gray. Like, a very, very dark shade of gray. Like, I don't necessarily want to get into the distribution or the issuance of rarefied digital art, especially in New York State, because the law, one, isn't defined. Two, it's the most defined here, so that means and by here I mean New York State, there's the least amount of clarity where I live personally. Like, if you don't live in America, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit. Like, that's fine. But I so happen to live at the epicenter of economics for pretty much the entire universe, as far as I know. So, am I supposed to just fucking, like, not look at this and go, oh, yeah, I guess that doesn't fucking mean anything? I don't think so. I really don't. But, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a fucking economist. I'm not a fucking... I have zero experience in the financial industry, so I could just be taking keywords and going, look at maybe the fact that they didn't define anything means actually good things for us. I don't think that's the case. I think when you have vague, non-clear descriptions of things, it's meant to screw you later in the butthole. Unwillingly. And I feel like that's what this is designed to, like, set up. But whatever. That's fine. But I don't want people to think that I'm just trying to shit on these, if anything, and like, I'm very open about this, I'm jealous. Like, I wish I came up with these ideas first. But a major part of me not wanting to come up with ideas like this, and also, I'm not saying I have the capability to do that. Like, let's also backtrack. Like, I don't have the technical, like, background to just, like, create crops I'm not saying that but there are other things I've thought of that are maybe more complicated or kind of similar, but maybe not going to be executed the exact same way that I do think would probably be very interesting ideas of implementing on the blockchain. And I've never put any type of resources in it because it seems like they would be it would be, be legal in New York State. So I'm not really interested in pursuing it. Maybe I'm stupid for doing that, and probably I would guess I am. And the more I think about it, it's like, shit, I kind of want to put some time into research into especially games and look at basically we're making blockchain trading card games are a real thing that's going to happen, most likely. And for the most it also kind of makes sense that that's how we actually develop certain type of gaming technologies. So, I don't really want to get too much into it right now, but we've seen how this has kind of already taken shape in video games currently, like EVE Online, Diablo, gold trading in World of Warcraft, CSGO skin trading. There has been times where the United States government has been like, hey guys, what the fuck are you doing? And then they go, sorry, I guess we're not going to do this anymore. And then there's regulations put in place, and then people will basically go, hey, look, if you don't stop doing whatever you're doing, we're just going to delete all the items on your account. And that's that's Valve's solution to CSGO trading. You know what I mean? That's a centralized platform. And technically, those are all digital assets, and they have their own blockchain. You know what I mean? Basically, the United States government said, hey, you guys have to stop fucking allowing 13-year-olds to trade fucking CSGO skins for thousands of dollars because that's not fucking legal. And then so they threatened all the websites that were doing that. If they don't stop, they're going to delete their fucking caches. How's that? Kind of makes sense to me. So, that's, you might, I'm not saying you're going to see something like that, but it's not it's unprecedented. Say what you want about it, you're calling it a game or not. It's talking about what's the practical use for it. So, Dan has no money for Bitcoins because Bitcoins is a new project he just created. Archetype just got $100,000. Maybe Augmenters or fucking Spells of Genesis, any of these things, if they had enough money, maybe they would be liable. I don't know. I don't know what's the threshold. I don't know if that's necessarily the indicator. But there has been precedent in the past where video games or video game companies have been spoken to, and then they change the way that they continue business. So I would not be surprised if those same type of discussions would appear in this sphere, and if anything, much more with much more severity, because those are clearly games where the assets are used for financial purposes, whereas this is not such a clear game, in my opinion. Once again, you're using XCP, which is it's supposed to be a decentralized exchange. You're implying that there's a market. Whether or not you're playing it as a game or not, you're using software that enables it to be a tradable security or whatever. So I don't know the practical use, the intended use, and I don't know if there's a difference. I from what I've been told, it's only about the intended use. So if they're intending it to be a video game asset, well then it's just a video game asset. But if it's being used like something else, and I honestly, I don't see what you could use Bitcoins for. But I could see the SEC being like, hey, this is just a scam. You don't need to use Bitcoin or any of this shit to hold on to your Bitcoins. Why don't you just change the technology or take the project down? I see that. I'm not saying that's a fucking fair case, but I've said this before. We're in the infancy of Bitcoin. The fact that it just went up to $20,000 is a very good sign of that. This is new. Now it's a buzzword for people. Regardless of how many times this has happened before in the past, with every iteration, you're going to see much more regulation. So, I don't know. But, once again, I'm not against Bitcoins, or I'm not against Rare.af, and I'm not against Archetype. If anything, I'm envious of the people who are creating these projects. But I do think, especially in New York State, there is a huge gray area. And I've been told this by many people. Look, you're just causing issues. I'm droning on about fucking nothing. And maybe that's true, but I also, there's been no one's debated me on whether or not the language is unclear or whether or not it's defined, because it's not defined and the language is unclear. And the reason why it's done like that, to me, is very purposeful. So I don't know. I'm probably wrong. They're talking about craps right now. What else? I think that might be it. I don't want people to hate me. I want to come out and just make this statement too, because like I said, I feel like I'm getting a lot of heat right now, and I think people are just think I'm trying to just write a buzzword here where it's like I still don't 100% agree with you, and that's just, whatever. I'm stupid, fine. I don't think people realize why Bitcoin is so interesting. It proves that you can be anonymous, for one. But two, I guess, the person who invented Bitcoin, no one knows who that is. And that, to me, that's a major piece of why it's successful today. I feel like if Bitcoin had a leader in the beginning, it may not be what it is today. It may have been shut down much earlier. And so these other side projects that are developing, they're like, hey, we can just copy Bitcoin and put our company on it and we can make money from it. I don't know if that's good. And maybe there's nothing, I don't know, maybe there's no legislature that would enforce that. But I feel like you're kind of talking apples and oranges at that point. Those aren't the two, creating the Rare.af Foundation is not the same thing as having a completely anonymous figure. And then you could say the Bitcoin Foundation was anonymous. But that didn't necessarily have to do with the development. That seemed to come after. Whereas the Rare.af Foundation is pretty much dependent on the Rare.af's foundation, or the Counterparty Foundation, or Counterparty's development at one point was dependent on the Counterparty Foundation paying their developers. So there's weird. I think there's some weirdness to the whole thing. Bitcoin was always there was from what I understand, the GitHub was created after Bitcoin was actually developed, right? I don't think the first iteration of Bitcoin was on GitHub, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And I don't think there was a Bitcoin Foundation either, which is actually the main point, is that all the repository, everything exists prior to there being a foundation and or GitHub. I guess that's the case for most projects, but I think there was a substantial amount of time before it was put on there. But I could be wrong about that. But yeah, that's it. Wish I thought of it first. Great. But two, I don't know if it would have mattered. Because I don't know, I probably still don't want to be liable. I don't think people realize this. I've been skeptical to make fucking Monero transactions up until more recently. And that's because there's been no exchanges that even fucking uses Monero. So how would I be able to take Monero on a fucking t-shirt website if I can't even exchange the Monero currency for anything in New York State? So I've always been very particular about how I interact with cryptocurrencies. And I don't think people realize that too. I come from a weird background. One, I don't really appreciate Bitcoin on the same level everybody else does, but I came from Dogecoin into mining on my GPU, which was basically Ethereum, into understanding Monero, and then just hodling. But I don't really use Bitcoin or have any necessity for it. It doesn't the fact that it just went down 50% doesn't matter to me at all. I think that's funny. In fact, I don't want that to I want that to happen more. It's funny to me. I love when that shit happens. But it's funny because you don't realize when it's happening because everybody goes silent all of a sudden. You're like, oh man, the Bitcoin community is really silent the past week. Oh yeah, the price dropped 50%. It's kind of sick, but whatever. Oh man, it's so funny. I love this shit, man. I do love it, but I don't think it's for the same reasons as everybody else. I don't know, man. I don't know, and maybe I'm unfairly tying this into, but I feel like people are barking at me a bit because I'm shitting on these things right as like the price dropped. I think that might be part of it. People might be a little sour that their little mint took a dive. Okay, I don't have anything else to say. I'm just rambling at this point. Guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. This is, I think, like the 9th or 10th episode of Altcoins Anonymous. Check me out. I'll be in the Ethereum Plus Dojo, and you can yell at me there, or you can check me out in the Bitcoins channel. I'll be in there. You can check me out in... that's it. Those are the best places to find me right now. All right, I love you guys. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.